So we have come back.
Finally, after years and
After
years
of
waiting.
The demand was high enough for both our podcast and Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So, well, I guess it's not Game of Thrones. The official title is House of the Dragon.
Yes, which is honestly my favorite part of Game of Thrones was the dragons. I was always really interested in that whole background knowledge of how that whole kingdom fell apart.
Yeah, and just the generally Targaryens. Everything else, when you really go from house to house, all of them are kind of like your standard medieval collection of people, swords and beards, and not too much of interest. But the Targaryens have this kind of magic backstory where Aegon originally found these dragons in Essos across the sea, and along with his sisters, and end up taking over the kingdoms and starting this dynasty. And that was always the most fascinating part of the story for me. So we enter this whole season with not the original Aegon, and not where we were last time with Game of Thrones, but about 140 years before that. And
I think they said 200, wasn't
240? Okay, I believe it. Something. But hundreds, not so, a long time before. So we end up starting our scene with our first bit of a dragon of the year. In season 1, we had to wait until the very last episode, if you recall, to see the little dragons crawling on Daenerys, which was such an amazing scene. I forget about that. But yeah, so we see Rhaenyra Targaryen, who seems like she's going to be a big star in this season. And she has your Targaryen features of looks almost like a younger Daenerys.
Yeah, I feel like she's a modern day, what all the female characters seem to be, defiant. I can just do whatever guys can do kind of character.
Yeah, she lands on her dragon, which looked amazing. I rewatched the show last night, and it was so pretty. It was such a well done scene. And she meets up with her friend Alicent Hightower, who they seem like they're kind of BFF. And to your point, they have a conversation where Rhaenyra almost says, "I don't want the throne." Her dad.
We should probably say spoiler alerts before getting into all
I'll put it in that would be the name of the title. So yeah, they have that conversation where she's like, "I don't want to be queen. I don't want to rule anything. I'm pretty happy. I just want to fly around with you, and we could eat cake." And I think that's a fair stance. It kind of reminded me of season 1 with Ned. And they said, it's dangerous not to, if you're in the game, if you're in the Game of Thrones, to not try to win.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end well. So we'll see whether or not this changes over the course of the series. I could see that's not really a good... that's not really a good stance for a fun season, right? If somebody's desire was to only eat cake and relax, and they maintained it.
I think later on in the episode, it's different, because it's this whole thing where the father is waiting for his son so that the son can take over. Meanwhile,
Classics.
He has a daughter who's very confident and seems to be a born leader. So you have this whole dynamic. It's the girl can't do it because it's a girl or whatever. And then later on in the episode, it's finally you're gonna be the inherit throne.
Yeah, all it took were numerous tragedies and a ton of other drama and a crazy brother to
Lots of good details between there, but it's like finally the father accepts the daughter and sees like how strong she is, and it's evident that that's going to be who's the leader of the next generation. Probably something's going to happen to the father eventually. Something always happens to a leader before long.
Yeah, it's true. If you're watching a movie and there is a person in it, an older person who's in charge, and they're very nice,
Yeah.
they always
reasonable.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
Because it goes to the point like the cake thing. Like there's no plot in people being reasonable. Reasonable is never a good plot piece.
It's not juicy.
If there's a reasonable character in a show or a
them.
movie, they're dead.
It's just to make you sad, I think. You just get bonded to this character. Like, this dad's bonding with his daughter. Well, let's see what's going to happen now. It's Game of Thrones. I mean, it's Dragon Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. Game of Dragons. Yeah, probably not going to work well. And for the king, things aren't going that well. That he starts getting this weird sore.
Oh yeah.
On his
so
back.
This is a question I have, and I probably could have easily Googled it, but
I
I
have
forgot
a
until
PhD
you just
I have a
got it.
better education in Game of Thrones.
So is he
than
getting
psychology.
like tetanus or like sepsis or what is it called when you get like those?
The lockjaw or jaundice? No, that's not jaundice.
No, it's like it looks like a zit, but it's like really bad.
Like a lesion?
That like wrestlers get.
Oh, like a staph infection.
Yeah, is he getting like staph infections or like is something bad happening from sitting on the throne because it's like cutting him?
So that goes back to the lore of Game of Thrones. And in this, there's this perception or like kind of wives' tale kind of thing that if you sit on the throne and you get cut and the throne is cutting you, it means that you're going to be dying soon.
Oh.
And that is historically how it went. And like if somebody was
Probably
really
because you get tetanus.
because it's made out of swords. But apparently if you're really fit to sit on it and you're not going to die.
Because you're not stupid enough to like sit on it without proper wrapping.
Yeah, and nobody puts a cushion on it or else it would look...
Wear your like little suit of armor or something on it.
So he keeps getting cut, and I think that's what they're referencing here. And we meet his advisor, Otto Hightower. And the Hightower name sounds familiar. That's where Sam goes to that city and studies to be a Meister. In the other ones. So this is like the family that owned that. And, for a family that had the kind of scholarly reputation, you can kind of see that this guy's pretty level-headed. And, I think he almost seemed like he had integrity. We'll see what happens. But this is the first that we're hearing about Aegon's dream.
Well, he does tell his daughter to just go sleep with the king. So I don't know how much integrity,
That's true. That's true.
Like, your mom just died. You could probably comfort this guy. So, why don't you go sleep with him and see, what happens?
Yeah, I guess, you think back to, that was a common request for women throughout history. When you think about it, that's what happened with Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII. Her dad was the one that tried so hard. He tried to get her sister, to be with Henry originally, and they ended up having sex, and then Henry lost interest in it. So then the sister came, and they had this whole thing, and she knew that she couldn't have sex until after because he would lose his interest. in it with that. But then I think
that was also my plan when I was dating guys.
It's a good strategy.
I see it with my friends, like, well, if you have sex with them, they're going to lose interest and you stop getting free stuff. So, like, why would you do that?
Everybody's just dashing and charming for months. And
guys are really at their best before you have sex with them. But go on with your story.
That's true. You know, I've never dated a guy, but I've definitely seen in just relationships with my friends and stuff, like the guy that they are before.
And it's not even like a trick. I think it's just genuine. Yeah. It's just like how it is.
You know, like a proper gentleman to every extent. They're holding doors.
You're about to see something.
They're throwing their shirt down on a puddle like in a 1940s movie.
Yep.
So that's our advice to everybody. Especially if it's a young guy. So yeah, we hear about the king's dream here, and then eventually at the end, and that's the Song of Ice and Fire that everybody knows was the target, the Lily or Lila Baratheon and Rhaegar Targaryen's son, and that was the whole Jon Snow. That was the whole point of that season. So it's almost like one of those religious beliefs that every generation thinks that they're the generation that's definitely going to do this. And we could say they were a few generations behind in terms of that, but all of these Targaryens are making these decisions to figure out what this guy dreamt all those years ago.
Which is kind of like what we think of with our own government, that they have these secrets that they don't tell us. Like, why aren't they, if they know this thing is going to happen, why aren't they warning anybody? It's almost like this, like, oh, we're the chosen people, like no one can know this secret. Like, it's almost like a power thing. Yeah, that the general sense that if we gave this information out to the public, that they would be irresponsible with it. They couldn't deal with it. Yeah.
I guess we see sometimes that's true. I've always thought that if society got told about aliens, I don't know if it even continues. And you wonder, everybody's always, oh, the government's covering this up. The government's covering this up. I don't know. Maybe it should be. What happens?
I don't think so. I think at this point we're all like sucked into our routine enough. Like, look at COVID happen, and then we all went back to work like little sheep. So at the end of the day, we're comfortable in our society, and we just want this.
What if they had two heads and talked all kinds of crazy stuff?
I wouldn't even be surprised by that anymore. I'll be honest. If Trump took off his head and there were like a little alien creature popped out, I wouldn't even be surprised.
I could see it. I could see it would explain a lot about the last.
I don't think any of us can be surprised anymore.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it's all been about. It's just like we need to desensitize these people, show them the craziest stuff on television. We started off with just movies, and then they thought, you know what, we actually just need to like do it to them in a direct scale.
Exactly, and maybe they're using psychology in all this, because when you see something, you're going to be less reactive later on, especially if you see it in a movie and everything turns out okay. Like, so maybe they're programming us with all these shows and stuff to not be like reacting bad to like when diseases happen. Like, how many movies have we watched with diseases and stuff breaking out?
Yeah, tons, and yeah, that's so true. That I mean, if I saw somebody who got their head taken off in a violent fashion, it would remind me of a movie. You know, your memory would.
Well, this is not like a good thing for anyone to do, but my dad follows like these pages, and he sent me a video of a guy shooting off his own head. Like, they have this just on like forums and stuff where
everything.
Like, guys are just no wonder there's so many like fucked up guys in the world, because they're like watching this kind of stuff, and I couldn't even press play.
You don't think any girls are watching it?
I don't think there's that many.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even press play, because watching somebody die on TV is one thing when I know it's not real. Somebody like committing suicide, on a video. Like, that's hard for me to, like, want to watch that.
It's weird that our brain holds these images in our head and differentiates them by real or fake. Like, I've seen some of those videos because I'm a guy.
There's this, and I've found what is wrong with society. Men are watching weird-ass videos on the internet.
I can't deny it from my perspective. I'm definitely a psycho. But you watch these things and you almost remind yourself, that's real. Like, I should. It's like, should I respond to it differently? It doesn't feel correct to respond to it in the same way that you would respond to something fake. And I wonder, exactly. Like, how much through history would you look at things and like that they have these images in their head that seem so real, and we hold them all. It could be more damaging because it's a new concept. This idea of real fake had never existed before.
It's true, and like I am pretty sure like that all these monsters and scary movies don't exist. But does that mean after watching it in the dark, I'm not afraid? I am, and I know that's not real, and I'm still afraid. So how is it like if you watch these videos that they can't affect you? Like, they have to be affecting you. My dad, another story, like, he was showing me this video of a woman, and it was called like Mrs. Pac-Man, and they had opened up her mouth, and it's like right before she like died, I'm sure. And
I think the cartel did.
Yeah, the cartel did it. And after my dad showed me this, I looked at him and I was like, do you think it's okay? Like, what if these people are making money by you watching this? Like, I think there's so many things that people don't think about. Like, yeah, it's shocking or whatever, but like, how is this affecting people? Like, they're using this to make other people afraid. Like, how many people see this guy shoot himself and they're like, well, I'm going to shoot myself on TV or on video and post it.
Yeah.
Like, it's messed up, and little kids are watching this stuff.
Yeah, when you look at it, it is weird to think how it does impact you. It definitely profoundly impacts. It sticks with you. Yeah. Some of those images are ingrained in my head.
Some of them are ingrained in my head. I can still think of videos that I saw as like at kids, especially like when you're like a teenager, like in middle school, like something that you saw and you're like, wow, like that really like.
I'll always think back to Hostel.
Yeah.
Like Hostel changed my way of thinking almost. I could never go to Eastern Europe.
And they actually do that kind of stuff at places.
I think that's why it's so terrifying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a tough one. And we definitely, speaking of Game of Thrones, a scene that really messed me up for basically the entire day after was when Oberyn Martell got his head smushed by the mountain. I remember I almost blame it on getting fired.
I feel like it's almost like one of the like minimal things that happen on that show.
But he was I thought they did such a good job at making this character so like alive and so bright in a really gloomy world. We have this north, and they're just, the really cold, frozen men, and you have the weird incest family. And like this guy just like, he had a lot of life. He liked it, he loved the ladies, he loved the gentlemen, he loved living, in every way he could. And like, he was so brave, and then to see him like squealing and then pop, just like just destroyed.
You're right.
I sat there the next day and I couldn't stop thinking about it.
There's a couple like episodes that were like that. Like after the whole family died, obviously like the Red Wedding.
The Sansa rape thing was pretty screwed up.
And then watching like the whole thing with what was his name, Reek.
Yeah, rapist.
That whole like thing was really messed up, like with the skinning and everything.
It's hard to sell. Like I could never show my wife Game of Thrones.
No, it's not something you watch with your grandma either.
I tried to think about it, and like I wanted to try and to like push it, And I'm just thinking, you start thinking about Reek. You start thinking about Oberyn Martell. And she's like, is it bad? And you're like, no, it's not that bad. And then you're like, oh, shit. You know what? It actually maybe.
There's a lot of rape. There's a lot of rape in everything.
Yeah, it's a popular Hollywood trope.
I don't know why. Yeah. I don't want to see it. Does anyone want to see it?
No, it's weird, especially in a society that does have like 1 out of 4 women sexually assaulted and 1 out of 5 or so men sexually assaulted.
Exactly. Like, do we really need to see it? Like, you can imply it and not like show it.
Yeah, did you see Black Mirror?
Yeah.
You know, that's where you kind of, it's left almost implied. The worst is left implied, which I think works better because to what we're talking about, it's been such a violent turn for the media in all directions and access to really violent stuff. And it doesn't shock anymore. So from a storytelling standpoint, from an artistic standpoint, it's almost just self-indulgent or gratuitous.
Like, they have to be like more and more cruel about it to even get it a little bit to be like wow factor.
So a scene that kind of was this episode's one of the top the top most violent was the Gold Cloak scene. So the Gold Cloaks are the security unit of King's Landing. They kind of guard it. And I guess they haven't been doing a good job, and people are doing a lot of crimes, and it's a very dangerous place. So Daemon Targaryen, the king's brother, the king's younger brother, who's played by the actor who is in The Crown, who played Prince Philip in season 1, who I liked a lot. He was pretty good on that, and it seems like this guy's meaner than Philip. I was hoping he was going to be like Philip, but he's not like Philip at all. Philip's much more of a gentleman.
Yeah, he seemed like he was a fun guy.
Yeah, he was just having fun. This guy's got some tasks, so he's running the Gold Cloaks, and it brings us to kind of a moral question. He's got kind of that real eye. He's running it very eye for eye. So I think you hear a thief, and he chops his hand off. And you have a rapist, and he chops his genitals off. And then he has a murderer, and he chops his head off. So, and it seems just. I guess there's no, in the classic Hammurabi kind of style, I guess without court.
Oof.
Is this how justice should be done? Should they just be people with swords?
You know, when you really think about what court is, like, it's just people arguing and people deciding, like, who decided that this is a good person to make up this decision. Like, they come up with people from the street, a jury of your peers, but then they pick them for a certain purpose, like what they think that they're gonna do.
Yeah, you'd imagine that they're not going to have a court system here. They're going to be kept somewhere, I guess a dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, our court system is the best you're going to get, and it's still, like, kind of primal when you really think about it.
Yeah, there are crimes, especially to lock up non-violent people in, like, a really violent place.
Where they know that they're getting assaulted by not just each other, but the guards.
Yeah.
And they're making money off of them in the private prisons.
Yeah. And it's amazing to hear about even the amount of illegal money that's made in jails. It's almost like putting these people together. They're almost forcing them to sit there and just do drugs. There's nothing else you could do.
Yeah, for real.
You might as well just sit there and develop a heroin addiction. It's gonna make, if you have a life sentence, right?
Yeah. I don't know, like, what else you would do.
Read.
You just try to, like, live your life in the prison as best you can, which is probably, like, to take people's stuff because you don't have that much.
Living with the worst people. The worst people imaginable. So, Otto Hightower from the old team, that really honorable guy who sent his daughter to have sex with the king.
Yeah, very honorable.
He was very mad, and he brings it up, and they have this whole fight with Daemon Targaryen, and he says that Daemon should treat his wife more respectably, respectfully, and she's from the Vale, which
Did we see her?
No, but we saw maybe her daughter or maybe her granddaughter, who is the one that would be breastfeeding.
Okay, but we haven't seen his wife yet. So the woman.
No, his wife died. Oh no! You met Damon.
Yeah,
we haven't met his wife.
So the woman he's with is the one that he like wants to run off with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was she was she a prostitute? Oh no, she was like a girlfriend.
I think she is a prostitute, but it seemed like they were gonna like run off together.
Yeah. So the I guess he doesn't judge. That's nice. He's not a classist.
Well, she is real hot. So.
Yeah, you deal with it. She seemed like she was kind of the
He
type.
wanted to save her.
She kind of said all the right things too. She was like that real cool girl. She's like,
she was
do you want other girls in here? Like, what's the issue? Like,
Are you bored?
I mean, that's gonna beat any wife.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Especially a religious wife.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Is the Vale, is that religious? No, that's just an area, right?
Yeah, that's just the that's that area that you have to climb really high to.
Oh, okay.
And the first one with John Aaron, where he was from. So that takes us to pretty much the scene that's discussed the most. Seeing social media.
People are very mad about it.
Very mad. It's funny, I saw a conservative guy who is on my friend's list, and he was very mad about it. Guess why?
Why?
He was like, I know that they just added that shit. You know, so to make the point, like, women don't get to choose. And, like, the script is, I think it's based off of a short story that's
You see
existed
that happen
for
all
years.
the time,
It's
actually.
happened. Yeah, to your point.
You see it
all the time.
in shows all the time, but I had just never thought about it like this. They could only give the women so much medicine before the baby gets it. So when they're cutting women open in any of these things, like when the baby is gonna die if they don't do it, that is always what happens. Like, even if the women are okay with it, like, that's still what happens. Like, they still cut them open while they're alive, and then they die from it.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't give her the choice.
Yeah,
but when you see that in
if
movies,
some people would have went along with that, just cutting. I mean, you can imagine just being stabbed.
Yeah, they say that you have to, like, move organs out of the way when you do, like, a C-section.
Yeah, they do. I think they take one out or something.
So, who knows what they're doing in that situation.
I don't think a woman's living.
No, definitely not.
At that point, they probably just gutted her like a fish.
If a queen couldn't live, then I'm sure, like, the average woman didn't live at all.
Jeez. Now, it really doesn't turn out well. So he does this whole thing. Like, clearly, you see a scene where they're talking, and they seem to be fond of each other. They seem in love.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he does it because he's so desperate to have this kid.
A son.
A son.
But he doesn't even know if it's a son, I don't think, at that point.
No, just through dreams. Through his own dream. Through the Aegon dream. He knew that it was going to be a son. And sure enough, the kid dies.
Yeah.
Lost everything. That's why you almost playing the odds worse. But now I guess he's going to try to marry a younger person. It's amazing that this didn't happen more in history. Like, jeez, I would be terrified if I were a woman.
I'm sure it did happen a lot.
Yeah.
We just don't really talk about that stuff.
Could you imagine how scary it would be to be a woman and think, geez,
think of
am
all
I going
the
to
time-
flip a coin and be dead?
Well, I'm sure that they always pick the kid, especially if they think it's going to be a girl.
Yeah. For sure.
But all the women that you've heard, like, throughout the, like, history died in childbirth. Who knows if they had the choice or not? Who knows, like, if a doctor could have told them from the beginning that like, the baby was going to be messed up. Because if you think about it, like, who writes history?
Yeah.
So if they want to keep out details like, oh, well, the father chose to kill the wife.
So
like,
we just had a scary thought. Imagine if all the times in history we heard that she died during childbirth, that's what it is.
probably a good portion of
Right.
the time. because women were property.
And she was struggling, so he chopped her open.
And you can always get a new wife, like, unless you're really attached to that wife.
Especially if she's a little older and
Yeah.
you want to and you still haven't gotten that heir, you try younger.
Yeah, it's a good way of getting a new wife.
I think it's probably been utilized in that fashion as well. So obviously the king is in a terrible...
On that note.
the king is in a bad place, obviously, and he's very much he's actually in such a bad place that he finally decides, I'm good with just having a daughter.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I dissed you.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I skipped it. He wasn't ready for that yet. He was sorting it out. But what happened was his brother Damon is in a whorehouse, and he makes this joke about like the heir for the day, calling the dead son, and then Hightower, who has a spy on Damon, brings this up to our king, and then he's furious, and in order to make sure that he's not going to be the king if he dies, he decides, I need to name my daughter the future.
He was so
leader.
mad at his brother that he was like, I'm gonna make my daughter the heir, not you.
The queen.
We'll see what happens if he has another wife and she gets a son.
Yeah, something tells me there could be something with Allison Hightower, the friend. Maybe they're not gonna be friends for long. But there's a lot of intrigue. Should be a fun ride.
Hopefully we didn't ruin it for anyone.
Yeah, definitely listen. Forget everything you heard if you haven't watched it, and watch it. And we'll see you at the next one.
Dun, 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 dun.